Hello and welcome to Not Just Ads. Will I be able in this episode to prevent Allison Schiff, the beloved AdExchanger voice for digital advertising, from being her usual successful podcast host and journalist and answer my questions instead? I succeeded 70% of the time. Nevertheless, I had the chance to hear from Allison what she thinks on topics like the field of privacy, third-party cookie, the digital advertising long tail, and the overall future of the industry. Spoiler alert, she will resign by 2027 if the third-party cookie will still be around. I hope you will enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Hi, Alison. Welcome finally to Not Just Ads. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to give you a compliment on the name of this video podcast. It's very clever. I mean, it's very convenient that your initials lend itself to that, but...
And it's also very accidental. I didn't choose my initials.
Right.
So...
But you did see the potential there, and you capitalized on it. So.
Absolutely. Although, to be honest, it was a colleague. I had this placeholder, and I put just ADZ for just as a reference. Here's the name of the company, and then he said, "Oh, that's genius. What is genius? Well, ads. Oh, and that's where how I discovered." But I would start with a question to myself: how to handle the host of an incredibly successful podcast, and also someone used to ask questions. So I will try to do my best to grill you in a nice way.
It's an uncomfortable position for me to be in because I'm usually the asker of questions. So I might fall back into that habit and try to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Absolutely, it's a conversation, and I would like to start with a very weird question. So let's imagine that you enter a room and there is an overflowing sink. What is the first thing you do?
Call a plumber or turn off the water? I will turn off the water if I know how. Yeah.
That's a very good answer. You fix the tap or you turn off the water. And I use this analogy thinking of the programmatic advertising space where we have a lot of conversations about transparency, about MFAs, about a lot of issues. And staying on this analogy, instead of going and fixing the sink, instead of going at the root of the issue,
I see where you're going with
all
this.
around the sink debating who has got the best mop to dry the floor until when it starts overflowing again. What is the state of programmatic advertising, in your opinion, today?
I mean, maybe I can just meet your analogy with another analogy. It's like getting really focused on what color to paint the walls when your house is on fire, or like choosing the furniture for an apartment in a condemned building. I mean, that kind of tells you what I think, what my point of view is. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, like that's basically my job. So I'll just quote one of them, someone you might know, Richard Kramer from Arete Research. And like he makes the argument that a lot of companies in this space are whistling past the graveyard. Like they're nervous and they see the writing on the wall, but they're also just pretending to be confident and just simultaneously trying to maintain the status quo because the status quo is their business. And that's why you have people getting out all their mops instead of turning off the water, because the water is the flow of money.
Whose business model is, though? Because I think that the solution is there. I am at the same time very critical, but also very optimistic about the future. So the state of media owners is improving. The quality of the environment makes the quality of digital advertising. So we have quality digital advertising environments. We are just not giving up with the idea of the programmatic open marketplace where a small percentage of quality media owners are diluted into the long tail and millions of low quality websites. So we basically try to filter out the rubbish when we could just go directly to quality in media alliances on premium advertising environments. So how powerful is this ad tech narrative?
I think the ad tech narrative is very powerful, though, because a lot of advertisers and publishers are sophisticated, but they also look to their agencies and they look to their ad tech partners for advice about how to do things. And if they don't have aligned incentives, then it's not necessarily bad advice, but it's not the best advice. It's not the best advice for really fostering quality in this ecosystem. So I would love to see everyone, I don't know, take off their, like, the masks that they wear when I interview them, because when you talk to somebody on the record as opposed to talking to them at a cocktail party or off the record, you get a lot more honesty. And I think people would agree with you and would say that what they really want is to see everybody do well. But their business models are not necessarily aligned, with the best interests of publishers in particular, but also advertisers. I mean, their money is being spent on not the best things, and you could argue that that is an advertiser's responsibility to know where their money is going. And there has been a lot of progress in that regard.
That's an interesting statement, because on the other side, I'm also saying it's a media owner's responsibility to provide an alternative to what happens in the open marketplace. Yet, publishers, media owners in general, are being following rather than leading. Yeah. I personally see a future where we have media alliances, where we have standards, we have quality, we have reach. When we break away from the delusion of the infinite reach, we have reach. But the problem is, you mentioned also, use the expression everybody to succeed. I'm also asking myself, can we create exclusivity if everybody is succeeding? Are there too many media owners out there? Because there is this misconception, okay, we need to preserve everybody, which means mediocrity, while we lose sight of what it means having an exclusive premium category of media owners.
There is this fallacy of reach. It's a bill of goods, I think, that a lot of people were sold, that you need to just reach more and more and more, that scale is the answer. And that really was the promise, weirdly a diametrically opposed promise of programmatic, that you would just have unlimited scale, but you would also be reaching people on a one-to-one basis. I don't know how both of those things are totally true at the same time. I would want to ask you a question, like what creates this better world that you're talking about? Because I find that when I have conversations like this, it's always about this soon-to-be future state, like we need change, or if but not like this and this has to happen for the change to happen, just like that we need change or we need quality. So what actually changes the mentality? And then I agree with you that there's a lot of long tail stuff that doesn't deserve to exist, but like how much of the tail has to get cut off so that the host can survive?
There are two questions. So one, what needs to happen? And if I wanted to summarize it, I would say alignment. We need alignment. We need alignment, especially on the media owner side. When I say a media alliance or a premium advertising environment, means that this needs to be an environment with standards, but also these standards need to happen also within the individual companies. And media owners have got a huge issue with alignment. There is a misalignment of objectives. They need to diversify their revenue streams, and you have subscriptions going one side, and within subscriptions, you also have acquisition and retention. You have advertising going another side and another way, and so this conflict creates a lot of problems and issues. In parallel, you have also a misalignment of incentives. So the advertising team is rewarding in a way towards certain goals, the editorial team in a different way, and the data team in a different way, and so on. So there is this fracture between senior leadership. You talk to them, they get it. They talk about the vision, but then their companies are not walking the talk.
I mean, it's the difference between what people say on stage at Programmatic I/O, for example, and everyone's like, and then how business gets done, when everyone's back at their desk. Or they don't even necessarily
Absolutely.
realize what's happening, on a team that's 5-7 tiers below them.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I forgot the second question.
Oh, right. I was asking how much of the long tail needs to be cut off. Like,
what
little nubbin?
Sure. I see it as two, potentially more tiers. So you have the top tier, high quality standards. It doesn't mean so quality could be a subjective definition. I'm talking about standards. How you collect consent, how do you handle the data, how do you what is the user experience, etc., etc. So that's one element. And this top tier 1, let's say, will be accessible with anybody that will start adhering to these standards. So I don't see it as a cut. I see it like a fluid movement, open to anybody.
I mean, that's
in and out.
Interesting, right? I mean, that phrase, "Oh, this is why we can't have nice things." We can have nice things as long as you do this, this, and this. Then you can have access to the nice things.
I have another question that is a burning question. Every time I see people talking about the monopolies, criticizing the monopolies, well, obviously it's undoubted that there are monopolies in digital advertising. But I see it also as a chicken and egg dilemma. So are the monopolies preventing the industry to develop in a balanced and fair way? Or is actually the inaction that of most of the industry that allow the monopolies to become monopolies?
I was thinking about this because you did let me know that you might ask this, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it because I wasn't sure what to say, and I came to this conclusion that it doesn't really matter. I guess it only matters in terms of what happens now and then what happens next, because yes, those who forget the past or don't understand the past or what has happened here, then you're doomed to repeat it. And, it's a time to look forward, I think, and not to navel gaze. So if both can be true, right? Because I think it also doesn't matter, really, but also that both are true. And, that the industry was stunted by monopolies and that a lack of creativity and forethought on the industry's part has created this scenario where the monopolies could rise. It's not even a chicken and egg thing. It's just, kind of fuel on a fire. The solution is just to be better now. Kind of like the ad tech industry needing to do daily affirmations. When you look in the mirror and you're like, today's going to be a good day. Like, today I'm going to prioritize quality. You just not blinking and looking at yourself. Every day is a new day.
I love this perspective, and also, yes, it's the danger is that it's used as an excuse, to postpone doing the right thing because there is Google, or because there is Apple, so it prevents me to do things. No, okay, let's start building the next thing.
Well, also, it's a very interesting time. I mean, if we're going to talk just for another second about monopolies, because we have that antitrust trial coming up against Google starting in, it's less than 2 months, specifically focused on ad tech, and that could really shake things up. It will. So that'll be fascinating.
Do you believe that the industry, people in the industry are thinking ahead? I have sometimes the feeling that we are distracted by the privacy sandbox,
Cookies.
sitting on the fence, waiting to see what happens. The MFAs.
Alessandro, cookies, I swear to God. I mean, it's been 4 years of writing about this. It actually started even before that, before Google made their announcements. It's more than a distraction. I mean, what you're getting at, it's destructive because you're spending so many of your engineering hours and so much money preparing and writing think pieces, hiring PR agencies to write think pieces for you about what's to be, and yeah, it doesn't feel as productive as doing what you were just saying, which is coming up with some sort of standards that we create ourselves, like for the publishing world, and prioritizing quality. I mean, it sounds like it sounds so Pollyanna, but it's really just smart business.
But I talk to companies, I've seen tests, there are alternatives, yet we are all, most of the industry is there waiting to see what happens, as is if the world will start spinning in a different way depending on what will happen. I've seen you, and in your articles, in your pieces, it's very interesting to see how you developed into this. Now you can perceive that you can't anymore. You can't take it anymore.
I mean, for God's sakes, if I hear the word leverage or cookieless one more time, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not responsible for my actions.
I will not talk about this anymore then. And we move to privacy, another
That's fine.
Another of the things that you write a lot about.
So First, though, I've said this a bunch of times in different places, but I just want to say it here because it feels relevant. So it's been 10 years I've been at AdExchanger, and so much has changed in 10 years. When I first started, probably 6 or 7 months in, my then editor, Zach Rogers, who suggested that I write more about privacy. I had missed the whole do not track debacle, so I joined AdExchanger after that. But it wasn't a big coverage area for us. AdExchanger had written a lot about D&T, but he really was very prescient and realized that even though privacy content wasn't going to drive a lot of traffic for us then, that it was really important for us to start writing about it and understanding it and realizing that this was going to reshape the entire ad tech industry. And it's now today developed into 90% of my beat. It's what I primarily write about. But yeah.
And I remember, Zach, actually, that's also a reason why I could start collaborating with AdExchanger because yes, I was very passionate about it. And I must say, for my professional career, hasn't been easy at all at the beginning. It's not being a popular perspective. How has it been for you as a journalist and for AdExchanger as a publication? Were you actually asked to go easy on it?
No, I mean, I wasn't asked to really do anything other than cover what felt important, and we didn't necessarily look at our traffic numbers to always dictate that. I mean, obviously, publishers have to care about traffic.
No, but I wasn't thinking internally. I was more thinking in terms of audience, like skeptical audience.
I think it was less, at least in the early days, it was less skepticism and more like they just wouldn't read it. Like people just wouldn't read those stories, which I guess would express, implicitly what they thought about it. It just wasn't a priority for them. That really did change, though. And now, obviously, it's one of our biggest traffic drivers. It's very important. And people kind of won't shut up about it. And it's a lot of talking points. So I've done my best to develop my BS detector, because people will tell me all about their privacy preserving blah, blah, blah. And it's hard for me to know because I'm not a technologist. I'm just playing at understanding this stuff. I do the best that I can. And so it's just my job to keep asking, okay, but how and why and how? And hopefully get to the bottom of it. And I'm assuming that that's what publishers have to do when they're deciding who to partner with. But it is more existential for them than it is for me.
Yes, and it caused a lot of damage in the last 20 years. And we still have that category, but I think the good, positive aspect of today, I can see that there is also a category within ad tech of companies that really interpret their role. They understand what change is needed, and they are working as true partner with media owners and advertisers.
No, I completely agree with you. And that it also feels just like good business, putting aside, what their motivations might be, right? I want to just lift up this ecosystem. They also want to make money and they want business. And the way to do business now is to consider privacy as part of your pitch. Like that, it should be part of the business pitch.
And how do you see the hurdle? What some see as hurdle of consent?
I think it's important to ask people, because we're just talking about people here. So I hate the word consumers, even though I use it. It's expedient. If you want someone to do something for you or listen to you, you have to talk to them, explain what you want. I mean, you do that in your interpersonal relationships. It's more challenging when you have to come up with some language that really expresses what you want to do with information that you're asking for them to share with you. But it all ladders back up to what you were talking about at the top, which is giving people something in exchange. So if you invest in yourself as a publisher, if you invest in quality and you are making an effort to be respectful of what people experience when they're with you, then I think it'll all redound to your benefit.
But don't you think that we have, or maybe is just the inheritance of the past, but in the industry there is this kind of double standards. So if you are a consumer brand, you wouldn't even think of abusing your customers' data in the physical world.
Oh yeah, right, of course. And then for some reason the rules online are totally different.
It's very tricky to overcome in terms of this inheritance of the past.
Can we stick with this still? So I know this is your podcast, but I'm gonna keep asking you questions.
It's a conversation, so feel free.
So you write columns for AdExchanger. They're really, really good stuff. And you wrote a piece for us, it was in 2019, about how consent is the new oil. And I completely don't disagree with that. It absolutely is. But my question to you is whether all publishers are in a position to get consent, because people are bombarded by opt-in requests, and not all publishers maybe have a strong enough brand to arguably get consent. So I don't know if all publishers are created equal from that perspective, and I don't know if they can all get first-party data, which is meant to be the solution for everything.
Well, thank you for the reference. Sometimes I feel time flying.
I know. You could have written that for us today, by the way. I mean, it's amazing, right? It's it aged well.
Well, yes,
actually, maybe it didn't.
Sad.
Exactly. Because if it still is relevant.
To be honest, I reuse articles from 2018 and linking them to what happens today.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm smart, it's just the industry that it's slow.
Right, exactly.
But that's a good question. And I will start mentioning something that happens to me when I'm in situation where the Financial Times or the New York Times or are like the focus of a conversation. And I hear many people saying, oh, but they have a lot of resources. Oh, yes, but with that content. Oh, yes, but with that engaged audience. Well, this doesn't grow on trees. It is not falling on their lap. This is exactly what it means having a long-term strategy which works holistically across all the different departments and towards a consistent objective and with consistent incentives. And that's also what I apply to the idea of consent. So consent is not just a box ticking exercise. It's the start of a journey from an anonymous user to a consented user to a registered user to a logged in user to the peak, which is value exchange, which might include as well other data than what is collected online, like proactively given to the publisher, to the media owner. We need a strategy. That's the first thought. And the second thought is, where do we want to be as an industry? And where do the media category wants to be? Do we want to look up? Do we want to look towards quality, or do we want to go to look at towards the bottom? Do we want to have high quality publishers diluted in the long tail, or do we want high quality advertising environments? And I think that consent and the trust in media owners is coming also from that.
I mean, privacy is part of that quality conversation. So, if you're going to have a strategy, it has to include being respectful. And like, that's what privacy is. It's just a synonym for respect.
We have been used in the industry to the easy way. It's not that easy anymore. So yes, but is not an answer anymore. And that applies to consent as well. I guess you have many ad tech companies talking to you and wanting to promote their products and their uniqueness. Do you have any anecdotes without naming companies?
I won't name any.
I bet
names,
you have many,
but I do. I spent a little time sifting through the pitches in my inbox, and I think that they highlight the fact that some ad tech vendors are, I think, using privacy as a marketing opportunity, which is actually okay as long as there's something to back it up. But maybe some are using it just as a marketing opportunity rather than as an opportunity to really change how they do business. It's also just so jargony. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I have to read all the time. So with a privacy-first approach, company's name redacted, cookieless solutions, such as contextual and semantic targeting technology paired with matched video content, drive value and relevance for both users and advertisers. What is this even, like, what does it even mean? And then there's another one. This is a different company. It's a quote from a press release that I was sent. Their groundbreaking approach to prioritizing consumer privacy and increasing advertising performance addresses critical market needs while also paving the way for a more privacy-forward and inclusive advertising ecosystem for pharmaceutical manufacturers. I'm like, okay. Another company says that it, quote unquote, transforms the data marketplace with a proprietary AI neural network that delivers highly predictive, privacy-safe consumer data at scale, which is like, I don't even know, whatever. I don't know what that means. And then there was like one other one. This integration ensures secure, privacy-compliant data at scale again, allowing advertisers to execute precise media campaigns and achieve closed-loop measurement across the redacted name of ad buying platform, guaranteeing full interoperability. Like, my inbox is hell. I mean, it's like dark humor.
I'm not jealous at all. But it made me think, isn't it interesting that everybody is complaining about consent and about privacy, or better, not complaining about privacy, but the way it managed, yet everybody has got data, consented data at scale.
My favorite answer to this question, which I don't really ask a lot of people anymore because it's kind of an outdated question, but like 2 or 3 years ago, I would ask companies, how much do you rely on third-party cookies? And 97% of companies would say, "Oh no, we don't. We never really did anyway, so it's not even that big of a deal for us." I'm like, "What? Then why are you complaining so much?" I don't.
Yeah.
It has to be one or the other.
How do you see digital advertising in 2027? 3 years' time.
3 years' time. I do think by that point, third-party cookies will be fully phased out in Chrome. If not, I quit. Like I'm going to try to make some good financial investments between now and then so that I'm secure. And if cookies are not deprecated by then, I do quit. I just quit. And I would hope, and I do think that there is a lot of hope, that what you were describing, this system of standards and an investment in quality and this this kind of a rejection of the rush to the bottom and a flight to quality would be what we would hopefully at least see some progress towards. And there's a lot of hope because there's momentum already. So I will say that trade publications, ours included, are a little bit guilty of doing our version of it bleeds, it leads. So like negative narratives play pretty well. So, you end up talking to a lot of squeaky wheels, a lot of people who are like complaining and angry. And, we do highlight success stories, but we do spend a lot of time talking about how everything is terrible. And I don't know how totally reflective of reality that is anymore. So, and if it is completely reflective of reality, what have we even been doing? And I don't think it is. So I think that things will be a little better by 2027.
I love this closure because it's a very important point, and I think we need to keep both. We need to be very critical of what is not going well and call out those that are trying to fool the system, and being optimistic because I think that we have the resources and we have seen already that there is a possibility for a different industry.
Yeah, I hear.
Thank you, Allison.
Wait, do you mind if I ask you a question? I know.
No, please.
Just to close it out.
Sure.
So on AdExchanger Talks, which is the podcast that I host, although I share that with my colleagues, I've been asking people this question, and I'm curious what you would say to it. So if you had a time machine, what point would you travel back to in order to make a change that would alter the future of ad tech and online advertising for the better? And if you want to hear what some other people have said, so that you can come up with something different, a couple of good ones. I had Joshua Lowcock on the podcast. He's UM's former chief media officer. He's at Quad now. And he said he'd travel back in time to meet John Wanamaker and get him to recant that 50% of all media is wasted. We just don't know which half, because that saying is responsible for so many of the sins of data-driven advertising, because it makes people think that programmatic somehow makes advertising more efficient. And then Adam Solomon from AWS was saying something similar to a point that you made, which is he would go back in time and like stand on a soapbox and try to change the ethos of early ad tech, because there was this tendency back in the day, and there's still kind of a tendency to take the easy way out. So he would just like grow his hair out long, I guess, like Jesus or something, and try to get people to look toward the future with a long-term vision. What would you do? What would you say?
It's a bit arrogant for me thinking that I'll go back and I'll change the course of the whole industry, but
I give you that power.
Similar to, I know exactly when the pivotal moment, the moment in which I changed everything. My perspective completely changed in the industry. I was working for Yahoo. And at the time, I was working on data and what we're called targeting products, behavioral targeting. And we were very proud about our behavioral targeting, the way we were using data, respecting the user while using a lot of different convergent data sources. And at that time, then we bought some programmatic companies, and suddenly we went from saying, okay, we use different data sources, we profile, to saying, okay, the user clicks on a car ad and the user will be in the car segment. I remember vividly asking the question, but I wish I had pushed more and I had been more vocal. I have started becoming vocal a bit late.
Well, no. You never too late. And you've been on this for years. So
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you for the answers. And well, see you soon on here, maybe in the next few months. Who knows? Maybe telling us that you're not, you don't have to write about those
yeah, right. Don't even
topics. I don't say. Thank you. All the best.
See you in 2027.